If you've clicked on this video, congratulations. You're at least willing to look at the possibility that your life is your fault. And that includes the things you don't like about your life. That's right. Your financial situation, it's not because of the government. It's not because of inflation. It's because of the choices that you are or are not making. Your relationships to other people are a product of your relationship to yourself. Where you are in relation to your goals is a reflection of how you have been approaching them. Now, I'm sure you have a plethora of ideas and thoughts pop up all the time about things that you could do, things you could be doing, how you could make your life better. Like you have the thoughts, you have the inspiration, and then it fades, and then you don't do the thing and the inspiration's gone, so you're like, oh, it must have been the wrong thing. Well, I'm sure you already know this, but inspiration doesn't get results, as you could probably tell by looking at your life. So yes, while inspiration is very important, we need to also combine that with action in order to make things happen in the real world. And what I'm talking about here is commitment. We need to commit to things. Now, most people are quite afraid of commitment, but what if I told you that you are committing to something right now? Like in any given moment, you're committing to something, whether you like it or not. And it might not seem like you're committing to something because it's so familiar to you, but if you're in your comfort zone, if you're doing a job you don't like, if you're having interactions with people you don't like, if you're spending your time doing things that you don't want to be doing, you committed to doing those things. And it's very easy to say, oh
no, I haven't, I've just,
If there's areas of your life that you want to improve, you need to recognize that you've committed to have those areas of your life the way that they are. And I know that sounds horrible because we don't want to realize that it's our fault. We want to blame other people. We want to blame the government. We want to blame the place that we live. But you're the only person to blame. You're the one that's chosen all of that. And I'm aware that life is hard. I'm here and I'm living it, and I have so much compassion for myself and everybody that's living. But because of the journey that I've been on over the last 5 years, and then also in the last couple of years interacting with people, I've recognized the pattern that I had is the same as the pattern that these other people are having. And it's not just like an isolated incident. Like, we are afraid of committing to things that are going to bring forth our highest version of self. Our most expansive life is hiding behind our fear of commitment. And as a side note, I'd really love to hear, what are you committed to right now? And like, be honest, like leave a comment and tell me what you're committed to, what's working, what's not working, and how are you going to change it? Let's be real with each other. Let's foster community down there and be inspired by the people around us that are taking action, because that's what we need. Action, not inspiration. There's inspiration everywhere. Like, just look at your Instagram feed. It's all this quotes about if you're perfect and you're not happy, then it's not much good being perfect, is it? It makes sense to take some actions to change it so that you can feel better inside, feel more expanded, because that's going to allow you to feel better in your own life, and it's going to allow you to show up in the world and make the world a better place, because that's what we're here to do. We're here to cultivate our inner world, which is going to ripple out into the outer world, and then everybody wins. But it starts with you. But whether we like it or not, we are committed to something. And if it's not the thing that we want, then it's likely the opposite. I'll give you an example. When I was traveling about 5 years ago, I was in Cyprus with a friend. And at the time, I just wanted to be grounded and live in one place. And I said to him, man, I would love to know exactly where to go and exactly what to do and exactly when to do it. And he just said, that's not how life works. And I was so annoyed because he was right. The fact that he was right meant that I needed to own my own stuff and go ahead and commit to that intention. At least you don't know where the best place to go is. You can have a hunch, and that's fine. You can go with that. That doesn't mean that it's going to work out. And you might be thinking, wait, hang on a second. I didn't commit to my horrible living situation. Well, you did actually, because the decisions that you made brought you there. And of course, you're not there forever, but you got to realize that the way you've acted and thought and, been in the world up until now has led you there. You have the opportunity to move out of there, to be in a different scenario. But what happens is we end up in this weird non-committal state where we're like, oh, I'm waiting for this thing to happen, or like someday I'll go there. But someday is not a day of the week. But it's this made up thing that provides no accountability. Like, someday we'll meet up, or someday I'll leave my job, or someday I'll go and travel the world. Okay, what day? Someday is just a placeholder. It's like until the moment that we're prepared to commit to the uncertainty, we'll just say someday. And then, unfortunately, we'll complain about life and how hard it is and all of these things because we're waiting for someday. But someday could be today, could be tomorrow, could be next Tuesday. So rather than saying someday I'll do this, just say today I'm choosing not to do that. Someday I'll go traveling. Today I'm choosing not to travel. Someday I'll start eating more carrots. Just say I'm choosing not to eat carrots today. Because it's honest. Like, you're not fooling yourself when you just be real and be like, I'm choosing this. Like, if you have an income that you're not happy with, you need to accept that you've chosen it, and that's okay. If you're not happy about the fact that, society in general, like, people work until retirement and then they retire and struggle, you need to embrace the fact that that's a choice and you can choose an alternative path. But it requires committing to stuff like, self-employment or, different strategies to generate income. There's plenty of common objections to committing to things in life. And I've used these, you probably use them, most people use them. One of them is, I'm not ready. Well, you're never going to be ready, because to be ready implies that you know every single thing that's going to happen. So if you're going to wait until you know every single thing that's going to happen before you commit to doing something, it's never going to happen, because life doesn't just tell you the map. Life presents each step as it's necessary. So when I was saying to my friend, I just want to know exactly where to go, well, maybe I should go somewhere and then take it from there. But the thing is, if I go somewhere, I have to deal with the uncertainty of being in a place and, unfamiliarity, and it's uncomfortable, and that's horrible. So instead I choose, at the time I was choosing to travel, because by traveling I didn't have to commit to a place, and I just was hoping that something would fall in my lap. And I don't think that's a bad strategy. It could have been the right way, but I realized that it wasn't. So I'm not saying that anything you're doing is right or wrong. It's not. But it's just about realizing that you have the power to make a different decision that could have a different outcome that might be more preferable and favorable for you and aligned with your vision for yourself and the world and people around you. So if you're not ready, I would say that that's not really a reason to not do something, because you'll gather the tools along the way. You'll gather the confidence. If you're trying to make videos, you could say, oh, I'm not ready. I don't have the right camera. I don't have the right lights. I don't have the right microphone. Look, you could get all of those things and you could still say, I'm not ready. I, for so long, when it came to my video production business, I would say that my camera wasn't good enough. And I would look at all these other people with better cameras and better everything, and I'd be like, oh, I can't be charging money. And the difference between me charging money and not charging money was literally saying that it costs money to work with me. I still have the exact same camera from 4 years ago. And at the time I was like, oh, I'm a novice. I can't do anything. You can. You're not going to be ready. You're never going to get to a point where you have everything dialed in. You're always going to have those thoughts and that voice coming online, because you're just a human, and that's what happens. Another objection to committing is that we want to keep our options open. Okay, great. What if I told you that committing to something doesn't actually close down your options? Committing to something just gives you clarity. It gives you a point of focus to move toward. And if there's other things like offshoots to that along the way, you can choose them. You can pivot. But the thing is, when you don't commit to something, your energy is just going everywhere. But when you commit to something, you usually find out your answers a lot quicker than if you don't commit. So if you're just scattered all over the place, you might try something, but you haven't actually persisted with it long enough to get to a point where you actually understand it or know what's going on. So let's take a business example. If you're trying to start an e-commerce store selling shoes and you give up after 2 weeks because you couldn't get a sale, well, you probably not really gathered many skills or much insight into the whole process and industry. So you don't even know what works for you and what doesn't work for you, because you didn't spend enough time in the game. You didn't get enough data. See, commitment leads to insight and knowledge. And that's what we can take forward to make, better informed decisions that are aligned with what we want. It's what gives us the confidence to be in this world and to be our own authority. When you commit to something and you persist through things, you realize that you're quite a powerful person. And then when challenges come up, you can be like, oh, that's a challenge. I've actually dealt with that before. That time I did that other thing. Whereas if you don't stay in the game long enough to navigate these roadblocks, to navigate the discomfort, then you're going to just be at level 1 forever, and you're never actually going to progress to the point where you're aware of your power as a creator of your own life. So committing doesn't take away your options. It actually just gives you better tools to choose from the different options that are presented to you by life as you go about your path. Another objection is, what if I make the wrong choice? What if you make the wrong choice? Are you going to die? Maybe. But I would say for the most part, it's probably more productive to commit to something and then make a wrong decision than to not commit to anything and then not learn any lessons, not get any headway or any progress. So yeah, you might make a lot of wrong decisions. You probably will. I've made so many wrong decisions, but each time I do, I learn something which I would consider a lot more helpful than the alternative. Like, look at this map I've made. Path A. It's like one point to another point, quite straightforward. So even if along that line I make a big failure, it's not really a big deal because the alternative is path B. And path B is so much energy being exerted. And in the end, I end up making a mistake anyway, because you're going to make mistakes in life. But the thing is, this mistake has taken eternity to get to. And I've just wasted so much energy along the way. And like, I've kind of dabbled in path A along the way as well. Like, it crosses over a bit, but for the most part, it's just not been an efficient use of my time. So if you're not committing to things because you don't want to do it wrong or you don't want to mess it up, well then just look at that map and tell me which one looks more appetizing to you. A way that my fear of commitment showed up recently, which I'll share with you because I think it'll be quite helpful, is that I had this inspiration to make a video that involved a public stunt and a backflip. And I didn't know anyone that could do a backflip, but I hadn't asked anybody. So my limiting belief would be like, oh, that's too hard to find someone that can do that. That would be too hard. Or like, that would be a lot of organizing and blah, blah, blah. And that's all fine, whatever. But I thought to myself, well, I haven't even asked. So I should ask people and then I'll find out if it's actually viable. It could actually be a lot more straightforward than I think if I just, put it out there. And so I started saying it to people. And it's not about the goal. It's not about the backflip. But what it's about is following that thread and following that intention to create something. And so when I started saying it to people, I started learning that other people had different talents that I hadn't thought of yet. So one girl, she can pole dance and she actually has her own pole and she's excited to be a part of the project. And I wouldn't have found that out if I didn't go and override that limiting belief that said, oh, no one can do a backflip, or no one wants to help you with this. And so my point is that those voices in your head are terrible advisors. Like, they're trying to keep you safe in a comfort zone. But that's not what you want if you want to grow, if you want to expand and live the life that you want to live. If you're not happy right now, if you're watching this video, that voice in your head is not serving you. And yeah, it's well-intentioned. I get it. Inner child and like trauma and all this stuff. But we need to hear it, appreciate it, love it, say, I hear you. Thank you for that. You're trying to keep me safe. You're trying to save me from embarrassing myself. I love you, but I really want to do this video with this cool acrobatic whatever. And so you go and do it. And then at the end of it, you're like, wow, I did that. And it's the same with like money and stuff. Like, people often are like, oh, you can't charge that much for this. It's like, well, you could. Like, with your current awareness and your current experience and past experience, you think you can't. But if you actually just do it and break through the ceiling, you realize that you can. But you need to commit to the intention that you can have more of something. It's only when you commit to it that you actually find out whether or not it's viable. And if it's not viable, then that's when you pivot or you have your other options or whatever. People just don't do things because they don't want to deal with the possibility that it will fail. Like, with my video creation career, I've made like 1,000 videos, and like 10% of them maybe have actually made a significant impact on my life and the lives of others. And the rest of them, it was just about learning. It was about trial and error. It was about practicing speaking. It was about practicing this, practicing that. It's not about the result, but by committing, you just end up experiencing and learning and upskilling and becoming a better person. You're the one driving your life. You can take any path, you can take any vehicle, but it's you that has the knowledge, that has the ability, that has the will to take it in whatever direction you want. But you have to choose it and you have to commit to it. And you have to really put your best foot forward, because otherwise you're just going to be flip-flopping around. And you're never going to spend enough time in any situation to actually like acclimate and grow. And honestly, you don't even have to do things that are super crazy. Like if you've ever bought a fish in a shop and you want to transfer it into a new environment, they'll come in a bag of water. And you don't just put that fish straight into your pond. What you have to do is you put the bag of water into the pond first. And that way, the fish gets to acclimate to the temperature, I guess, or the environment. And then after doing that for a certain amount of time, then you release the fish into the actual pond. Because if you put it straight into the pond, it will just die. If you don't jump, you're never going to land anywhere. You're just going to stay exactly where you are. So if you keep committing to the same life, the same day that you're living every day, don't be surprised if you're in the same place in 5 years from now. And if you do choose to commit to something elsewhere, yeah, you might embarrass yourself. You might hurt yourself. You might, be in pain or uncertainty for a while because the next step isn't clear. But I promise you that if you're feeling scattered, committing to something is going to bring you clarity. The intended outcome might not be what happens, but you gather all sorts of weird stuff along the way that you didn't even anticipate. There's always going to be external factors and influences that are beyond your control, but your job is to focus on the things that you can control, i.e. your action, your thoughts, your beliefs, and then work with those. And don't allow the things you can't control be the thing that you use to justify not taking action on the things you can't control. And I'm well aware that it's uncomfortable. I'm well aware that it's scary, but all of the above are essential ingredients to live the life that you wish to live. And along the path, life is going to suck sometimes, but your new worldview isn't going to see that as a failure anymore. You're just going to see it for what it is, a part of the game. As always, it's a pleasure to have you here. Leave a comment below and tell me what you're committed to in life right now. I read all the comments and I also take your feedback and make content based on what you say. So if you have some interesting questions, I might make videos about them, or I might write about them in my newsletter, which comes out every other week. You can sign up down below for free. If you got a specific issue, if you want to work with me on your own projects and content creation, work with me one-on-one, link down in the description. Until next time, have a great day.